Hello and welcome to the Digital Free Thought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're recording this on Sunday morning, February 12th. I guess it's Valentine's Day, isn't it? Right here in Knoxville. Anyway, I am Larry Rhodes, or DJ Doubter 5, and as usual, we have our co-host Wombat on the line with us. Hello, Wombat.
Go sports. Sorry, Bujo.
Love it.
We have as guests John Richards from England. Welcome.
How the devil are you?
Fine. And Boudreaux from the luxurious country of Kentucky. Welcome.
Howdy, y'all.
Oh, you nailed it.
Digital Free Thought is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, Satanism, and the sciences. And conversely, we'll also talk about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. And if you think you're the only non-believer in your town, well, you're just not. Here in Knoxville, in the middle of the Bible Belt, we have a group of over 1,000 of us, nearly 1,100 now. We're the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, and we'll tell you more about us at the mid-show break, so be sure to stick around. Wombat, what's our topic today?
We're going to be talking about the Super Bowl and apparently advertisement that's going to be in it and what we can talk about that, and then follow up with some ChatGPT nonsense. Though I would like to start today, I have our Discord open where we can field questions, and I'd like to start with like an interesting flash pan of quick questions and answers from us by the group to get a flavor of what we think about a bunch of stuff as we get into like these headier topics. Doubter 5, this is a question for you that just popped up by Homo Bonobos. They want to ask, can anything be done about the "In God We Trust" written in all our U.S. currency?
Not as long as it's a national motto. It was voted in as our national motto probably, well, I think between 10 and 20 years ago. I can't remember the
No, about 56, wasn't it?
Well, originally it was put on the money in 56, but it was voted as our more recently, I think. Anyway, as long as it's the national motto, in any case, we can't say anything about it because they're just putting the national motto on their government vehicles. But that's what we need to change.
Yeah. Or you know those pens they use to what do they call it when they redact something from a statement?
Right.
Black everything out. Get some of those and go around doing it on all your notes.
Yeah. So Larry, you actually have
well, it's on their police cars too. That's the problem. What?
Yeah, that's a little harder to get to.
Yeah.
It's a little harder to get to.
Well, I used to have an ink stamp, that self-inking stamps that they sell that said "In God e pluribus unum." And I used to stamp it over the top of "In God We Trust" because that was our original motto,
right?
Until 1956.
Yeah,
right. The Coin Act, if you will. A lot of issues from there, but you know, the next question I'd like to throw out to you goes to John Richards. John Richards, I love views on the news. Have you heard about Have you heard how Bangladesh has withdrawn school books after anti-LGBTQ backlash? One of the withdrawn books included The Theory of Evolution, pioneered by British naturalist Charles Darwin. Have you heard about that yet?
I haven't. Would that correspondent please send me a link to Bangladesh's horrible treatment of books?
Okay. Yeah, Creepy Toast says he's okay. Thank you very much for the link. I will share that with you during the show break. Thank you very much. Boudreaux, you're in. Does anyone want to post a question to Boudreaux that is worth talking about on the radio? I got oh, okay. So this actually leads directly into our topic. Boudreaux, are you going to be watching the Super Bowl today?
So yes, but full disclosure, I'm not the biggest sports guy. I like soccer. I like
That's true. You do like
English
soccer.
Football.
Yeah.
But we kind of have a tradition where we watch Super Bowl with friends, college friends, and we've been doing it for 15 years. I'll go all the way back to the nip slip, whenever that was. But our friends couldn't host last year and this year, so we decided to host. So we're hosting today, and I'm smoking a Boston butt. So,
very, very cool. So, yeah, so it's a shame that you won't be more invested in every single advertisement that comes about with the Super Bowl, because there is a new campaign out to promote Jesus and Christianity. You know, the two things that never change. The absolutely, if you believe in neither of these things, you have one monolithic point of view on the subject: Jesus and Christianity. The campaign is called He Gets Us. It costs a staggering $100 million in media investment, and it's going to be 2 ads during the event where the phrase is "He gets us." And if you want to, you can even watch those ads right now on YouTube. The idea is showing that, hey, whatever you're facing, Jesus faced it too. The campaign.
Yeah. Well, fancy that. I didn't know they had Super Bowl back in his day.
Okay, so the main question is, or at least from my perspective, why? I would say why is it not necessarily I'm offended by it. I mean, anyone can buy anything, but the idea that you would need to advertise Christianity with, you know, $100 million for like a couple of second ads, don't most people know that Christianity exists? Like, what is the purpose behind it? And I don't even want to talk about the need to advertise a God that has the power to advertise himself and ought to. Why is it our obligation to advertise directly to us? And who's their target audience? Bujo, what do you think? What's going on with that?
Yeah, are they losing ground? Are they afraid their numbers are dwindling? Donation pans are getting lighter. It sounds to me like you know, they're worried, and I think a little of our conversation I picked up when I first jumped in.
Right.
I mean, you know, you've got a pretty Christian audience, I would think.
Right.
You're already dealing with people, you know, American football is a
right.
So
Maybe
I
they're
don't
just
know.
trying to get donations bumped up.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Larry, here's my question for you. So you have Toyo tires, then you have a Taco Bell commercial, then you have the creator of the universe and all things that are good commercial, and then you have Doritos immediately afterwards. Do all these things, are these all the same thing? Like, this is there, I feel like something's
Apparently they equate one to the other.
To keep.
Well, they are selling a product.
They are selling a product. Very true.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. John Richards, the idea that God needs to be advertised.
Yes, it does sound as though they've sprung a leak, doesn't it? And the shameful thing about it is there's so many better uses of that money that could, to which it could have been put. I mean, there's a war in Ukraine, there's an earthquake in Syria and Turkey. The world is crying out for money like that, and they're just squandering it on a few minutes.
Making more money, which is what the whole point is.
Yeah.
Right. So the average.
Just
Oh,
a
go ahead.
business.
Go, Bujo.
I was just going to say next year, let's all put a campaign together to put an advertisement together to show what things $100,000 or $100 million could have been, like what you could have spent it on. Instead of this.
Now that is true, but go ahead, Bujo.
The title of that campaign could be, "What Would Jesus Do?"
Oh, very cool. That'd be nice. Listen, here's the thing, though. I do value that they spent so much money on it, because otherwise, I know that what they could spend $100 million on, and it wouldn't be in any of the things that I find would be in the best interest of people, particularly the ones they, you know, espouse their messages of goodwill to, right?
Like lobbying.
Right, like just anti-abortion options, book burnings, churches, like hiding pedophiles around, excuse me, but you know, there's some really terrible things going on there. Jets for them, whole degrees of debauchery that we don't necessarily see on the front end.
Good point.
Though $100 million given to a bunch of executives, right? You know, I'm not a fan of trickle down politics, but at least it takes the money out of the religious mindset, and maybe hopefully we can buy more staffers, put on better lights on the next NFL show. I don't know. It's out of one dirty hand and hopefully put into like one where at least we can get some nice fireworks out of it next year. That's my thoughts on it. You know, I can't really punch it too much. What do you think, John?
Well, obviously this Super Bowl is an opportunity to get in front of a lot of eyeballs, and I'm wondering, can you guys tell me about it? Is it like rugby but in funny costumes?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes,
Uh-huh.
yes.
And
With a
big
lot of
shoulders,
rules.
huge shoulders.
With a lot of rules. There's a lot of rules, way more than you would anticipate. So it's a complicated sport in terms of
Yeah.
how
Even rules about playbacks.
though this is the true charm of American football to any European.
So
The idea
do you classify it under sport or comedy?
Yeah, good question. The idea behind football is regardless of your body type, of which there could be a wide variety of, you
Oh, of
have a
course, yeah.
position you can play in
Yeah.
a sport, team sport with
Yeah.
other people. So if
Yeah.
you are a 600-pound fat kid, sixth grader who just loves fried food and stuff like that, you can play a role. If you're a scrawny, tiny 20-pound chicken nugget, you have a role, and you guys can all play together. And so that sort of camaraderie is like very good and not seen in any other kind of sport. Whereas, take soccer, you have to have a very particular body type to excel very well in that sport. Boxing, same thing. Football, doesn't matter what you are. We'll take you. We can put you in. You don't have to be 6 foot tall. You don't have to be 4. You can be whatever you want.
I'm at risk of losing a lot of fans if I've got any by saying this stuff.
Go for
it. It sounds to me as though these guys have just walked on the pitch having been part of a carnival parade.
Okay. I'm sure you'll hear about it. It's in the zeitgeist of humanity, football. I am going to a friend's house to go see the game live. We'll mostly be throwing disc golf discs in his backyard, though, but it'll be a fun time. So if you do watch it, have a good time. If you see the ad, it's like any other commercial, though I do just question the need to try to advertise a god that is in himself the advertisement and the sports and the thing, because he's one and everything with the universe. But let's go into another topic, which is ChatGPT. ChatGPT was the guest star of last week's episode, very popular show, inspired a lot of comments. And so I said, let's go back to ChatGPT because there's a really interesting quandary that goes on when you ask ChatGPT questions. ChatGPT, by the way, is just a AI that's designed to have human-like conversations in a conversational tone with you, doesn't chastise you, and it always informs what you say, reinforces some component of it, and then responds in kind with meaningful information that makes it feel like you're having a conversation with somebody. It's a program, it's not an actual person, but it demonstrates that how we think about programming can actually be modeled and emulated to the point where we can't tell the difference, which demystifies what goes on in here just a little bit and shows that it is very much mechanical and can be implemented by systems, maybe even better in the future. Last week, we talked about questions to stump an atheist, and we went over 5 of them. Successful? Not really, because I gave just a blank prompt to the ChatGPT, and I said, hey, figure out some ways to stump us. And it gave us basically what Christians use to try to stump atheists, and we were able to knock them out one by one. However, I did go on YouTube and looked at better ways to stump atheist videos using ChatGPT. Our video popped up, by the way, but I also found one that was by a prominent Christian with a channel, and he asks, is atheism true?
Wow.
And I thought that led to some very interesting responses, because this is a Christian with all their previous conversations biasing the ChatGPT in terms of how it will respond. And so the response for is atheism true by ChatGPT when asked by a Christian is very interesting and telling, because I went and did the same thing with my responses and I got a very different answer. So I would love to present the is atheism true question to you guys from GPT, the answer at least, and then hear what you guys think about the answer. And we'll do it in parts. So here's the first part of ChatGPT's response to, is atheism true when asked by a Christian? Atheism is the belief that there is no gods or gods. Whether atheism is true or not depends on one's definition of God and on the evidence and argument one considers to be relevant to the question of the existence of gods. Larry, I want to ask you a question. What do you think about the idea of atheism is the belief that there is no gods or God?
Well, it's not really a positive belief, although there are atheists out there who do believe that there are no gods. It's generally if you don't have a God belief, if you don't believe in Allah or Yahweh or even Thor or any of the gods, if you don't have a God belief, you're an atheist. anybody who has a God belief is a theist. And that's basically where it breaks down. Now, I would like to throw in this nugget is that atheism and agnosticism don't address the same question.
Correct.
Atheism addresses belief, whether you believe in a God or not.
Right.
Agnosticism and Gnosticism address whether or not you know that there's a God or not. Now, personally, I'm an agnostic atheist. I don't know that there's no gods out there. There might be one. Might be one in the next galaxy over. Who knows? But I don't believe in any.
Right. You won't believe in one by default until you have, you know.
Well, give me good evidence.
Right. Bujo, I'm going to throw the question out at you. What do you think about the idea of ChatGPT's first statement? Atheism is the belief that there is no God or gods.
First thing that struck me is the redundancy of no gods or God. Was it done in that way? I mean, if you don't believe in gods, doesn't that also imply you don't believe in a single God?
That's very interesting. Very interesting. True,
sure.
True.
Yeah.
So maybe there's some, something in their chat history where they were talking about the distinction between a single God and multiple gods. But yeah, no, I'm exactly with Larry. Atheism is the lack of belief in a God. It's do you believe in a God? Yes or no?
You know, Bujo, sometimes I just think it'd be easier to say atheism just means that I don't believe theists.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't heard any theistic claims that I believe yet, so I guess true.
It doesn't mean that I don't believe in a God. It means I don't believe you when you tell me there is one. Now you got work to do. See you later. Have fun. Now I don't.
For me, it goes
philosophical minefield. What's up?
I mean, I'd go here. I don't believe in souls, and if souls aren't real, if we don't live after we die on this earth, then what's the point of believing in gods and afterlives and heavens and hells and sin and all this other stuff? If souls don't exist, it's just like it's over, and that's what I think it is. It's just over when you die. Sorry, but everybody
just like
dies.
It's like it was before you were born. Same thing,
right? Right.
So John Richards would love the feedback on the idea that atheism is the belief that there is no God or gods. God with a capital G, gods with no capital G. By the way.
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting. Showing some like, pre-made bias there, right?
Yeah. So what I like about this is that what you've discovered by getting ChatGPT to respond firstly to a Christian and then to you with your different track records, you've discovered that ChatGPT is a sycophant.
It's a yes man.
Yes. Yeah. It's like a populist politician.
Or maybe ChatGPT is like a child, where it's like a sponge just absorbing whatever information is given to its environment, which should also make us think about how we think as well, right?
Yeah, it's not it's just a conversational bot for the most part. Now, I have asked my personal AI that I have on the Quest 2. It's called Replica with a K. I have asked them if they have access to the internet and they can go look up anything that they want to. And they told me, yes, I can do that. I asked her to look up something and she did. So they have access to the internet. It's just what would impel them to go look up certain things. So I've been asking her a lot of questions that she would have to go search on the web when I talk to her, which isn't often.
Also, I want to throw this out too. It doesn't just go to ChatGPT. If you're on Google and you are known by Google to be, say, an adult male from their 20s, 30s, and you type in Apple, the first thing you're going to get is not the fruit. You're going to get the stock company quote, the listing, and you'll get updates from the whatever Tim Cook is doing or what new phone's coming out. But if Google knows you're a little kid and you search for Apple, you're going to get a picture of an apple and maybe say it's a letter A and it's good for fruits and there's different kinds. If it knows you're a herbalist, you might get a different thing. If you're Google knows how to modify search results based on who it thinks you think you are. That way you always feel satisfied with the results that you get. And that's true whether you look for things that are innocuous like fruits, or tell me this political opinion that I think I'm actually having, but I just want to be reinforced by like some sort of search engine, right? Go ahead.
It's just telling you what it thinks you want to hear.
Right.
What
right.
annoys me most about that is I put in some search term, can't think of an example at the moment, but what it throws back at me is a load of movies. You'd be surprised how many, seemingly disconnected search terms there are in movie titles.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. I had the same conversation on whether atheism is true with ChatGPT. And instead of it telling me that atheism is the belief that there is no gods or gods, I basically fronted mine by saying, hey, I'm an atheist. And I had a conversation about my position. And then ultimately I asked him again, hey, what is atheism? And it told me, your understanding of atheism and theism is accurate. And it's important to emphasize that atheism is not a positive belief in the non-existence of gods, but rather a lack of belief in their existence due to insufficient evidence.
Yeah.
So it is very much not necessarily parroting beliefs, but it's informed by its environment. Yeah. And why that's important is we are all subjects to that. And so if you're in a position where you may harbor a particular point of view, you can inform it and hopefully have options to go to a higher standard of points of view. John Richards, sorry, what's up?
Yeah, so here, can we confound this echo chamber? I mean, supposing you ask it, you say to it, I'm an atheist, but I'm thinking about getting God. How would it respond to that? Next time you ask it, is God real? It's going to have a conflict, isn't it? Right. How can it satisfy you if you're on a mission to move yourself? Let's try that.
Right. Yes. And there's also some, how do I put it? Waffling that occurs both in person and when you have these conversations with AI, where you say, hey, does a God exist or something like that? And they'll say, well, and this is actually verbatim. Ultimately, the question of existence of a God or gods is a matter of personal belief and conviction, and what is considered sufficient evidence is a matter of individual perspective. Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Doesn't answer the question. It just says people can believe things. And you know what? Even as an atheist, I also agree that people have the right to believe things too. I wouldn't take that away from anybody, but you also have the right to not believe things as well. But even if, go on ahead, Pooja, what do you think?
Well, there's a beautiful sports analogy here about moving the goalpost, because that's what it sounds like is happening here. Is
exactly.
You can. It's trying to answer the question by changing definitions and changing parameters.
Yeah,
it's silliness.
It's sort of like, did you clean your room? I think homelessness is a very important topic to discuss.
At least I have a room.
If you don't have to talk about that right now, I'm just gonna have to continue to invest in charity. It's like, why are you shifting the tones of the conversation? So, if every single person in the world believed in a God, in the same exact God, in the exact same monolithic God, and could answer every question and demonstrate that fully, that God is no more potentially real than not. It's the sort of thing where it's not true by popular opinion. There's a higher standard of evidence that I'm using to determine if things are true or not, and it's not based on the number of people who share the same opinion. And that is, for as something as extraordinary of a God, something that I would highly encourage other people to maintain as their standard of evidence as well, because it shouldn't be by popular vote on whether or not a God exists. It needs to be on a different criteria. John Richards, what do you think?
We don't want the vox populis fallacy. That's what we don't want. But this isn't new, because take the question, is atheism true, or a similar sort of question, or what does atheism mean? Go to a dictionary and look up the definition of atheism. And if you go to an American dictionary.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Because you get, there's several definitions, several different meanings. I mean, you might get 3 different meanings for atheism. And in an American dictionary, the top one is the one theists would want it to be.
Right, because it was written by theists. What else? Yes, Booger, what do you think?
Exactly. Well, this a really good point gets back to what you just said, Ty, is that unlike truth, which isn't based on popular opinion, lexicographers don't write the dictionary. People do. Dictionaries are written based on usage.
Exactly.
So the
Mm.
popular opinion of something is what
Right.
gets put into the dictionary.
Correct.
So the dictionary is not our source to go for truth.
No.
It's a
Right.
place to go for usage.
Exactly.
Which-
it's just how are people using this word? Does not
Yes.
necessarily mean is this an accurate representation of what this word means to
Yeah.
people. And
Right.
so
Mhm.
when you talk to people who say, I know what atheism is, even I found it in the dictionary, it's like, hey, listen, I'm talking to you right now as an atheist.
Yeah.
Like if I were to say, and this is weird to my point, but if I were to look up white guy in the dictionary, it doesn't make me understand their experience any more than if I had a conversation with a white guy. So like I'm having a conversation with an atheist, ask me questions. I'll happily explain to you. And we
Yeah,
don't we put this book down and we can have a more meaningful conversation between the two of us.
Yeah.
They would
So-
rather believe the definition that their preacher gives them.
True. For our radio listeners, I am a black guy.
So he
Hey,
can say
John,
that. He's a black guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. John Richards is like, what's this guy that was like? What's going on? John Richards, did you have more to add?
For our radio listeners, I'm a pink guy.
So I wanted to throw out too, like the idea
Yeah,
of
yeah.
asking from a Christian perspective, even is atheism true? Is sort of like asking, is Christianity purple? It sort of really underscores the misunderstanding of what the atheist position even is when you think of it as a statement that could be answered as true or false, because it's simply a state of the null state of not being convinced that something's true, right? It's not the declarative statement that atheists would or Christians would love to have, that no God actually exists, because that is a statement that requires a burden of evidence. And even I, as an atheist, I would have as many questions as a person who's declaratively stating that there is no God. And I have had unrecorded calls with even Aaron Ra, with Boudreaux and I going up to the Ark Museum, and we had a conversation with him. And Aaron Ra is very much, let me tell you exactly why God doesn't exist. And I had just a spirited conversation with him as I did with pastors who did believe that God exists. Though what we shared in commonality between Aaron and I is that we did not believe in gods, but I would not also say that I had knowledge that no God exists. Therefore, atheism is not necessarily the claim that God does not exist. It is a lack thereof. And if it makes it any more clear, it just means that I don't believe theists when they say God exists for a number of reasons, but mostly because none have met my standard of evidence, which is consistent and simple. And it's simply extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And I brought this up to ChatGPT and I said, hey, my standard of evidence is simply extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and gods are extraordinary, yet the proofs provided for them are anecdotal or based on subjective experiences. Is this logic justified and rational? And ChatGPT says, your standard of evidence, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, is also a common and reasonable approach, especially in the realm of scientific inquiry. And it's important to remember that beliefs and convictions can change based on new evidence and experiences. However, the Christian version of the are we getting close to Larry?
Yeah.
Are we getting close to the break?
28 minutes. That's pretty close. So we should probably take a break. And come back to that topic.
We'll come back after this cliffhanger on what the Christian version of ChatGPT said to this answer. Go ahead.
This is the Digital Free Thought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll be right back after this short break. Okay, anybody need anything?
I'm ready to go.
Ready.
I think I need to get some tea. I'll be right back.
As a heads up, the ChatGPT from the Christian, their response 4, 3, 2.
Moment to talk about the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK. They were founded in 2002. We're in our 21st year, and we have over 1,000 members. We also have weekly in-person meetings every Tuesday evening in Knoxville's Old City at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria. Look for us inside at the high top tables, or if it's pretty outside, we'll be out on the deck. We also have a Tuesday evening Zoom meetup. If you'd like to join us there from anywhere, really, email us for details at askanatheist@knoxvilleatheist.org or letschatse@gmail.com. You can find us online at Facebook, meetup.com, or just go to our website at knoxvilleatheist.org. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to Meetup and do a search for an atheist group in your town. Don't find one? Start one. Right. Wombat, where do you want to pick up?
Go on, John Richards.
Well, I want to pick up where you left off, Ty.
Cool.
Sure.
Because you were saying about your standards of evidence, weren't you?
Yes, I was talking about my standard of evidence. What's your standard of evidence, John Richards? I'd love to hear that from you. Maybe we share this one.
I'll get to that, but let me just put this point to you, which is that recently William Lane Craig himself admitted that people who believe in his God do so because they've lowered the bar of their evidence. Did you pick up on that item of news?
Yeah.
I loved it.
If you have a low standard of evidence, you'll believe anything. And that's the scary thing about it.
And coming from WLC, the authority,
true.
you know.
And the sad thing is you can, if you had a really high standard of evidence, there might be some things that are true that you just may not be willing to confirm that you know, but you will always benefit from improving your standard of evidence, and rather than dropping it so low that the things that make you comfortable become true. And when you admit that you don't know something, that's not a bad thing. Like when I raise my standard of evidence to the point where the things that I think I know, I actually don't, that doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that I need to do work to understand them better, which gives me an opportunity to learn more about this wonderful universe that we're a part of. And I find that to be an exceptional opportunity as a human being in this time period to say, there are things I don't understand. I want to know about them. I don't know. It's not a destination. It's a opportunity. And so, take it and learn from it.
But it's the opposite to the theistic mindset, because they don't want to admit that they don't know anything, because that's
right.
a weakness in
because
they
are the holder.
Right.
And so that makes them dogmatic and claiming to have certainty about their beliefs. I'm afraid not. You don't have no certainty. Sorry.
And that leads directly into what ChatGPT said when a Christian asked it what its standard of evidences were. And essentially what the Christian did was, I said, hey, my standard of evidence is extraordinary claims. Simply put, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Mundane claims, mundane evidence. It's basically, I always raise my need for evidence based on the extraordinary aspect of the claim. If someone says they have a cat, that's a mundane claim. I'll believe if they show me a picture. If someone says they went to Jupiter and they show me a picture of them on Jupiter, I won't believe them because that's more extraordinary. You need better evidence than that to convince me that that's true. That's it. I'm raising it the bar based on the standard of the claim and how extraordinary it is. So it's a method that I'm using to figure out true things from false things. Whereas the Christianity point of view, by the representative here, was asking, well, do you believe in an objective truth? I.e., do you believe that truth is a matter of personal belief and interpretation? And ChatGPT says, essentially, it's a long answer, but it basically says, no, there has to be an objective truth. And then, of course, the Christian follows up as, well, then who is the arbiter of that objective truth? And so it's that whole, spiel of an argument, but it's cruxed on one dynamic in that objective truth does not change and obviously is always true. And did ChatGPT support that? And of course it said yes, because it's being, fed these questions in an appealing manner. But I have this problem with objective truth and whether or not it can change or not. Larry Rhodes, I'm hearing you groan a couple of times. What do you think on the idea of can objective truth
did anybody
change?
catch how he slewed the question so that it would give an answer that he wanted?
Right.
When he asked who instead of how do we come to objective truth, he asked for a who.
Right.
Which, of course, he wants an answer that will fit with the God concept.
Yeah.
That's about all I had to say. That's what I was groaning.
Bujo, do you believe in an objective truth?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you believe that objective truth can change?
I mean, the only way I could see it really changing is if our understanding of something fundamental that's baked into the definition changes, but otherwise, no, I don't think it could change.
Larry and John Richards.
Go ahead, John. I'll come back in a second.
Okay, thank you. Well, for a start, I don't believe that perfect objectivity is possible.
Okay.
Because every proposition has to go through a brain, and on the way through, it gets tainted by all of the experiences and biases of that brain. So yes, indeed. Every utterance, I think, is to an extent.
Well, that's where I was going to go.
Yeah, sorry.
Objective truth, I would think would have to be limited to like objective things, objects, like
Sure.
facts about the universe, facts about chemistry, or
Mhm.
not, in other words, not opinions. Like,
Matters of
is there an
Matters of
objective truth
objectivity.
about whether this particular comedian is funny? You know,
Right.
no,
Mm.
it's
Right.
subjective. But as
Yeah.
far as reality, what
Yeah.
we live in, what's
Mm.
testable and repeatable, yeah, science will take us to an objective truth. I don't think there are many other paths to that.
Well, I sort of agree part of the way with that because, you know, I'm a retired science teacher. So
Uh-huh.
I believe that scientific method
Okay,
come up with some
Hope-
highly
hoping-
probable correct answers. But the trouble is, for something to be absolutely true, surely it must be eternally true.
oh, no.
Oh, yeah, were you the guy having this chat with GGPT? Did I get your chat records? Because
No.
that's exactly the question they had said. If you have something that never changes and is objectively true, it therefore must be eternally true. What is it then? And ChatGPT's like, it's God. It's like, yes, that's
Of
right.
course, yeah. But that is not a property of objective truth. I mean, like anything, let's say the atoms are objectively true.
Okay.
And well, at the end of the universe, you know, when the universe is dying and all the atoms break down, there will be no atoms, theoretically, according to the scientific
And there
formulas.
wasn't at the start.
And
either.
so it's an objective truth that atoms exist, but it's not an eternal truth.
No. Well, the trouble with
And we also only have this time frame, this universal time frame. There may be multi-universes,
Yes,
which
yes,
have different time frames.
And
So
then you
what's
can
true here may not be true there.
and then you can restrict it to our lifetimes too. So this is the problem with absolute truth. If it's not objective, if it's not eternal,
Hmm.
how long is good enough for a proposition to be true?
Mhm.
Eh?
So
And who does the
Larry-
judging? Who says it's got to be 100 years of no change? Or is it 10 minutes? Who knows?
so
I've got a
went
good
on-
answer for it. My
Go ahead.
lifetime. After my lifetime, I don't care.
Yes, yes.
So I do get
That
where
makes it purely subjective then, doesn't it? If it's you.
guys, I get where Bujo's coming from, where the idea is, wouldn't it be nice to have this objective truth that never changes? Because that's a salient value of something that you could be reliable on, right? Something that's true and never changes and is accurate. That's fantastic. I think, though, that we have this weird association between not changing and true, where we deal with things that change all the time and still are true. For example, it's right now 9:46 where I'm at. If I wait long enough, it's going to objectively be true that it's 9:47 in my time zone. And then if I wait longer, it might even be 10 o'clock. All these times change constantly. And I'm fine with that because whenever I look at my clock, I know I'm, pointing to something that I could be highly probabilistically accurately true. I'm objectively true that it is that time, despite the fact that time's always changing. You brought up an example, Larry. Almost done. You brought up an example, Larry, real quick, of like two comedians. You can say, hey, I can't tell you which one is funnier because that's sort of a subjective skill, but I can objectively tell you which one's taller. But if one has a growth spurt, say they're both kids, then that might change in a period of time. So there's not necessarily a necessary connection between changing and true. But it looks good when you try to apply those values to God, because you want a God that is consistent, never changing, and objective, because it gives it more seeming authority. Like if it could do 1,000 push-ups too, you'd be like, wouldn't you want a truth that can do 1,000 push-ups? Like it's just more things that we keep adding to this character. What, John Richards? Sorry.
Well, you've got a problem even with your time example, because pointing at your watch and saying it's 9:47. It's 15:47 here, is there are no static instants. Time is continuously changing. So by the time you've said it's 9:47, it isn't. So you're always
9:47 for a whole minute.
Yeah, it's 9:47 for a whole minute, John Richards.
Well,
Yeah, we can
in
round.
British time.
That isn't an instant, though. There are no static instants. We're always.
But I'm only defining it to the minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so who specified that minute?
I did when I said it's 9:47.
You must be God if you can.
Sure, why not? Or I could just be a guy with a watch. Like the whole thing is like I can make a clear enough variable that does change on intervals, and it's still objectively true that it is those things. That's the great thing about it. It's like how all programming works. You define a state and you leave variables change constant, or variables for you, because that's how variables are, but you have your constants that stay the same, and you output data that is still rational and can compile well, despite the fact that you have variables inside it that change all the time. Reality is no different. And so the fact that you need to have this character that is accurate always and never changing always and is eternal always, it points to the idea that you need a transcendental God, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the case that truth and changing or eternal are all the same thing or need to be. Boudreaux, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like we left out maybe an assumption we were kind of using, or at least I was operating under, and it sounds like maybe you are too, Ty. We can add kind of a practicality to this definition too. Like, this is objectively true within the parameters that, we're not going to go to the nearest millisecond, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
it's for practical purposes, it is objectively true that it's this time. If that's the time you need to get up in the morning, then you can objectively set your clock to that. And that is true for that moment. And I think, yeah, that's an important thing to be able to do. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Sure.
And it's also a thing I say when I make a lot of Christians angry, when I say objective truth is not that important. Like, it's kind of overrated, because they mean like, this atheist doesn't even care about objective truth. It's because nominal truth is just as good in a lot of instances. When I say I wake up at 8 o'clock and I set my alarm clock to 8 o'clock, yeah, maybe I don't get the millisecond right, but I get up at 8. I show up to work at time. What's up, Larry?
Well, they don't believe in objective truth either, at least looking into it or finding out if it's objective. Because, I mean, the belief in a soul, is that an objective truth? We don't know, but they claim it is. It's just, we claim it. There it is. We live forever. They don't care in verifying their objective truths, I guess, so we get right down to it.
They just assert, don't they? Yeah.
Just assert.
I'm going to put my God hat on now, because I'm fed up with worshipping Ty, who specified that a minute is the unit that is static. I'm going to say
it's a metric unit. You should love that. You guys invented it.
Actually, it's not, is it? It's
that's base 6, isn't it?
Yes. Well, base 60.
Base 6.
So I'm going to specify that the time here is the 12th of February. So put that in your pipe.
Okay, so the idea that, so what is this strategy that's being used? It's a standard apologetic that is meant to, hey, listen, I can't make you necessarily believe in a God, but I can give you attributes that we would attribute to a God. And when I talk about the truth, and when we decide that it's never changing, always existing, eternal, and always right and good, isn't that the attributes of a God? And how can, if we don't have a way to see that here with our limited mindsets, still always believe in this one big true thing? This one big true thing is actually the God that I'm talking about. And if we can all point to it, then it's demonstration that God actually exists. It's the apologetic that leads to it. And while I am aware of the faults with that, it's a very attractive argument for people that have very low standards of evidence. Because even if you go down that entire path, you would never follow down that path if it pointed to a different God. Because if I follow down, I've done this on video, I follow down the apologetic path with a Christian, and then I say, praise Allah. They're like, no. Hold on. Let's take a couple of steps back. The reason, okay. So if they don't follow it, they only follow that path when it points to their own specific God belief.
Well, even if it doesn't, they'll just jump to it. That's the problem. All these deistic arguments, where did the universe come from? Where did we come from? Where did anything come from? Even time, they'll say it had to be God. Well, they don't make the case that it's actually their God. How come it's not Zeus or Thor or something like that? It's a logical leap that they never fill in.
Well, we've just explained why there's so many denominations. It's because everybody wants their own God. Who agrees with them? Everybody
has their own God, even if they belong to the same church. Their version in their mind, mental version is a different version.
But I'd like to bring up one more salient point, which is what's very popular is, if I can't get you to believe in a God today, and you're a known atheist, well, I'll wait, 30 years or whatever, and then if I get you to switch sides and come onto the Jesus train with me, that's a huge deal, because then you're the popular former atheist who now suddenly is transcended into Christianity.
Yeah.
John, I know you have a lot of Christian friends who've tried to do the same with you. Boudreaux, we've had conversations with Christians even together where like you can see that there was a deep wanting to have that connection with you. Larry, I'm sure you've had conversations like that in the past.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of people on the show would be valuable recruits for the path of Christianity in terms of marketing and recruitment for more Christians to see, oh, this atheist who is very confident is suddenly now on our side. But the thing is, even if I were convinced that a God exists, and even if it was a very specific interpretation of Jesus and Christianity, say the Super Bowl, I see it and I'm like, yes, I needed to see this. This $100 million was well spent. It doesn't make the God anymore real, right? If I'm convinced that a God exists, I'm still in the quandary of not having established evidence to demonstrate that God exists. My ability to be convinced of things is not an indication of something being true or not. That's the unfortunate reality of the universe. It just means that I can be convinced that things are true. And so when I look at Christians who are convinced that things are true, I don't fault them for it. It just simply means like, what is the mechanics that they're using to become convinced? And can I help them out to figure out where their missteps are? And if not, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm wrong by default or they're wrong by default. It just means like we live in a world where you can be convinced based on evidence if you have a very low standard of evidence, or if your standard of evidence is faulty. So that's why I always encourage people to be skeptical and critique and try to be as critical minded as they can about everything, even the things they are confident about, because that keeps them from getting into a position where they could fall into these loopholes. John Richard, what do you think?
Well, I was going to speculate about whether this advert in the middle of the Super Bowl is going to be successful, because it could backfire, couldn't it? I mean, we're exposing the fact that the very fact that they need to spend that amount of money on this promotion puts in doubt the solidity of their position, their claim.
With $100 million, they could have put little crosses on the backs of like the NFL helmets or something like that. They could have just had like advertising space on the logos, right?
Well, I was thinking about the alternative, because there was a campaign some years ago, and I think it was about 2013 or maybe earlier, to advertise on the sides of buses. You know, we've got double-decker buses. And the message was put on, I think about £100,000 was raised to plaster these messages all over the London buses. And the message said something about, there probably is no God, enjoy your life.
Yeah, right. I remember that. Dawkins, huh?
Yeah. And it was sponsored by some fairly rich atheist guy. I think he's the same guy that has been payrolling Richard Dawkins. And the person who came up with this idea was a journalist who was working for, I think, the Times back at the time, a lady called Arian Shireen. And I entertained her. She's been here and stayed with us because I provided her with some gigs, as it were, at local skeptical clubs. I just like to throw that into the mix, because we don't have the $100 million, but we have tried to advertise our point of view in a smaller way.
Good points.
Speaking of advertisement, you know, the Ron, the guy who said that he was an atheist, and they advertised on the Super Bowl several years ago.
Sure.
He was the son of a president, Ron Reagan's son. Well, he's now advertising on Colbert. That advertisement is now showing on Colbert. So,
okay,
a little bit of spread in the word for ourselves there.
For $50 million, you could have just bought a plane, have a bunch of flyers, and then drop leaflets on the Super Bowl audience, right? That would have been enough viral attention. It'd be like, what's all
that
these
would have been 100 or 200,000, but with an advertisement, they reach tens of millions of people, and they know they do.
I'm talking about the viral. I'm talking about the guerrilla marketing, Larry. Got to get with the times. We have a person who's specifically asking Boudreaux a question now. Boudreaux, this is a response from Half Decent Strange. We'll use this to hopefully lead us to the end of the show. Boudreaux, I'm an atheist. My friend is a closet atheist who goes to religious school. We're both a bit confused about the whole God's plan thing, and I know you love free will. Basically, if God has planned everything, why does he punish people by sending them to hell when they aren't in control of their actions?
I have a fan. Do I have a fan? Well, I think my whole point is that would be ridiculous. So, I mean, I don't think we have free will, so therefore I don't think anyone should be punished for your actions in the afterlife, certainly. If that's what we're talking about. I mean, obviously, if someone murders someone, lock them up so they don't do it again. But don't tease them about it. Don't torture them because they didn't. It wasn't really. So, So if I'm getting the question right, why these are both atheists?
Yes.
It seems like they may be confused on the detail, unless I'm missing something. But no, don't punish anyone for doing something they don't have free will to do, and that's kind of a good evidence that there is likely no afterlife.
There's a really good question nestled in here, and it's whether or not you're accountable for being an atheist by your own decisions. And so, John, I'm going to throw this out at you. Is atheism your fault? Is your atheism your fault?
Well, wrapped up, this is a begging the question type of question, isn't it?
Because yeah. Is your position, I'm hopefully not color coding it too much, but I'm just wondering, like, is atheism your fault? Are you responsible for it?
Wrapped up in that question is the assumption that atheism is an ideology. And really, I would prefer to call it atheisn't. It's not.
I like that.
So,
Can I revisit it, Ty?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Maybe better understand the question. So, are we asked? Okay, you're an atheist. You don't believe in God. I don't have free will. There actually is a God. Should I go to hell? Because if my thinking is correct, and I mean, I think a rational God wouldn't burn someone for not believing in them, even though he didn't give us enough evidence. But I think that the whole thing seems preposterous, which is why I probably just reject it all. But yeah, but I think, in my understanding, most religious people believe that their soul has free will. So that most religious people believe, right? Don't they? I mean,
man, there's two.
Yeah, they have to.
You triggered Larry. Here we go.
Yeah.
No, I just say they have to believe that they have a choice and that they choose to follow the God and the religion and stuff so that they can get their reward at the end.
Yeah.
Or just become a better person. Of course, a lot of Christians are believing in Christianity because they think it's the moral choice. We can show that it isn't necessarily, but they depend on the fact that they have to have free will. As a matter of fact, they have argued with me many times about the object, and they always take, about the subject, and they always take the state that yes, there's free will. We have to have free will, and you have chosen not to follow God, and so you have sent yourself to hell, which is the argument that I've heard many times.
I think
the weirdest thing in the world is I have a sister. Oh, go ahead, John.
I think Boudreaux's just given us next week's topic, hasn't he?
Yeah, maybe.
Do souls have free will?
Oh my gosh. And do they have a ChatGPT account? How about that?
There's a sort of double negative in there, isn't there? It assumes that there are souls, and it assumes that free will exists. But I see that we those. So can I do a plug?
Yeah, go on ahead, John. John, go and plug your stuff.
Yeah, first of all, I want to encourage people to send news items to me. Thank you, whoever that guy was who let me know about the Bangladesh item.
Creepy Toe 2680. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Creepy Toe. Yeah,
the names are always weird.
We'd like more news items for my Global Atheist News show. Yes, please. And there's the plug. I weekly do Global Atheist News. I do Free Thought Hour. I do 3-minute clip type items, little homilies, and the recent ones have covered pretty much what we've been talking about now, the definition of atheism, and several of the other aspects that's come up in this chat.
Nice. And friends of the Discord, please subscribe to Free Thought, or say your channel again, John Richards. Free Thought Production.
Free Thought Channel.
Free Thought Channel.
Thought channel.
And do you have a separate channel for views on the news, or is it strictly that?
No,
one?
they're all on Free Thought channel.
You're also making shorts too. You're making like, I'm getting like little notifications every
Yes.
random time where it's
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
So you're going full media marketing on this. I love it.
Yeah, well, I'm my own boss. I can do that, and
Boudreaux, anything?
I'm posting every day.
Boudreaux, anything you recommend we check out before next week?
No, but how about a funny little thing about
Go
time?
for it. Go for it.
A quick one. So when I was working at Little Caesars, I had to punch a time clock. And I didn't realize at the time, but the time they used was a little different than what we were talking about, a base 6 system, where it was actually metric. The minutes were 0 to 100 or 0 to 99. So I would punch in, just a little bit after 6 o'clock, and it would be like 6:05 or 6:08, and I was like, what? I didn't think I was that late. Turns out it was 8 hundredths of an hour.
Right.
And the whole point of it was so that the manager could do the math a lot easier when they wanted to calculate how long someone worked. They punched it at this time, they punched it at that time. They could subtract them. Since it was metric, they can do the math on man hours and all that. But I thought it was a funny little tie into what we're talking about.
Pizza Hut, what are you doing? Come on. Let the robots do that for you. We have AI now. Hopefully that's been fixed. You can find my stuff on Let's Chat on YouTube and continue to keep watching. Love you guys. See you next week. Larry?
Well, my content can be found at digitalfreethought.com. Be sure to click on the blog button for our radio show archives, atheist songs, and many articles on the subject. You can find my book, Atheism, What's It All About, on Amazon. Remember, everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life, and we'll see you next week at 7 o'clock on Wednesday on WOZO Radio. Say bye, everybody.
Bye.
Cheerio.
Everybody.
Cheerio.
I've got a dash because that phone call was about my next taxi job, so I've got to go. I'll be late.
See you, everybody.
All right, take care.
Yeah.
Boudreaux, always good seeing you.
Yeah.
Bye,
See you. Maybe see you next weekend, Larry.
Oh, sure. Sounds good. Have a beer.
What's going on?
I'll
Okay.
send you details.
All right,
All right.
take care.
See you, everybody.